The radar warning receiver screamed in Captain Aubrey Bennett's headset. Multiple contacts, 6, 7, maybe 8 enemy fighters inbound at Angels 25, closing fast on her position. She was alone, flying a single F-35C, Lightning II stealth fighter 200 nautical miles inside contested airspace over the South China Sea. Her mission: penetrate enemy air defenses, conduct reconnaissance on their new carrier battle group, and get out without being detected. The detection part had just failed spectacularly. Viper 1, this is Hawkeye. We're showing 9 enemy fighters vectoring toward your position. Recommend immediate egress north-northwest. You are heavily outnumbered. Aubrey checked her tactical display. 9 Chinese J-20 stealth fighters, their most advanced air superiority platform, were converging on her from 3 different vectors. They were trying to box her in, cut off her escape routes, force her into a kill zone where their superior numbers would overwhelm her. The enemy pilots probably thought this would be easy, 1 American fighter against 9 of theirs. A numbers game they couldn't lose. They were about to learn that numbers don't matter when your enemy is invisible. Hawkeye Viper 1, negative on the egress. I'm weapons hot and engaging. Viper 1, say again? You're outnumbered 9-1. Aubrey armed her weapon systems. The F-35's advanced sensors were already painting targets, calculating firing solutions, predicting enemy flight paths. Her aircraft's stealth characteristics meant the enemy fighters were looking for her with their radars but not finding her. To them, she was a ghost, a phantom that their sensors insisted was there but couldn't actually see. Hawkeye, they flew into my engagement zone that makes them targets, not threats. Viper 1 is engaging. Out. She locked up the first enemy fighter. Her finger moved to the weapon's release. What happened in the next 11 minutes would prove that the most dangerous fighter pilot in the sky isn't the one with the most planes. It's the one the enemy never sees coming. But before we show you how 1 American pilot destroyed 7 enemy fighters in the most lopsided air-to-air engagement since the Gulf War, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and smash that subscribe button. Because this story proves that technology, training, and sheer determination can overcome any numerical disadvantage. Now, let's get into it. 0847 hours. The penetration. The mission had started 4 hours earlier on the USS Abraham Lincoln, a Nimitz-class supercarrier operating in international waters 400 miles east of the contested Spratly Islands. The pre-dawn catapult launch had been routine. Aubrey had done it hundreds of times. But this mission was anything but routine. Intelligence indicated that China had deployed a new carrier battle group to the region, including their newest Type 003 carrier and a screening force of advanced destroyers and cruisers. More concerning were reports of their latest J-20 stealth fighters operating from the carrier, aircraft specifically designed to challenge American air superiority. The mission brief had been clear: penetrate their defensive perimeter, get visual and electronic intelligence on their capabilities, and return without engaging classic reconnaissance. In and out, quiet and invisible. Your primary advantage is stealth, the intelligence officer had said during the brief. The F-35's low observable characteristics mean you can get close without being detected. But if they do detect you, if you're forced into a fight, you're alone out there. The nearest friendly fighters are 200 miles away. Help won't arrive in time. Aubrey had nodded. She understood the risks. She'd been flying the F-35C for 3 years, had logged over 500 hours in the aircraft, and was considered one of the most skilled pilots in her squadron. But she'd never been in actual air-to-air combat. None of them had. The last major dogfight involving American fighters had been decades ago. She was about to get that experience. The penetration had gone perfectly. She'd flown low, using the F-35's terrain-following capabilities to stay under enemy radar coverage. Her aircraft's stealth coating and design made her almost invisible to radar. The radar cross-section of an F-35 was roughly equivalent to a golf ball. To enemy radars, she simply didn't exist. She'd reached her observation point at 0840 hours. Her sensors had captured detailed imagery and electronic signatures of the Chinese carrier battle group mission accomplished. Time to leave. That's when a radar warning receiver had lit up like a Christmas tree. 0848 hours. Detection. Viper 1, Hawkeye. We're seeing increased enemy air activity. They're launching additional fighters. Recommend you expedite egress. Aubrey checked her tactical display. The enemy had launched a full combat air patrol, 12 fighters in the air, with more launching from their carrier. They were spreading out in a search pattern. They knew something was out here. They just didn't know where. Hawkeye, Viper 1, what's my stealth integrity? Viper 1, your stealth profile remains nominal, but they're using active search patterns. If you maintain current course and speed, probability of detection increases to 60% within 10 minutes. 60%. Not good odds. Aubrey could turn and run. Her F-35 was faster than most of the enemy fighters. She could probably outrun them, especially with her stealth advantage. They'd be chasing a ghost they couldn't catch. But that meant abandoning the mission profile. It meant showing the enemy that American aircraft could be intimidated, could be chased away, and Aubrey Bennett didn't run from fights. Hawkeye, Viper 1, what's the nearest enemy fighter to my position? A pause, then. Viper 1, we show a two-ship formation at your 3 o'clock. Angels 22, range 40 nautical miles. They're heading toward your last known position. Copy. Viper 1 is engaging. She banked right, adjusting her course to intercept the enemy formation. Her F-35's AN/A PG-81A ESA radar could track and identify targets at ranges exceeding 100 miles, all while maintaining stealth. She could see them long before they could see her. The tactical display showed 2 contacts, J, 20 fighters in close formation, conducting a search pattern. They were radiating actively with their radars, trying to find the intruder they knew was out here somewhere. They were looking in the wrong direction. Aubrey selected her AIM-120D AMRAAM missiles, advanced medium-range air-to-air missiles with active radar guidance. The F-35 could carry 6 internally, maintaining its stealth profile while armed. She locked up the lead fighter. The targeting computer calculated the firing solution. Range 38 miles, closure rate 900 knots, probability of kill 94%. She pressed the weapons release. The internal weapons bay doors opened for less than a second, just long enough for the AMRAAM to drop free and ignite its rocket motor. The doors snapped shut, preserving her stealth profile. The missile streaked toward its target at Mach 4, covering the distance in less than 30 seconds. The enemy pilot never knew what hit him. One moment he was flying a search pattern, scanning his radar for contacts. The next, an AMRAAM impacted his aircraft at hypersonic velocity, detonating its 50-pound warhead and shredding his fighter into burning debris. Splash 1, Aubrey reported calmly. Viper 1 has 1 confirmed kill. The second enemy pilot saw his wingman explode. He immediately broke formation, diving and turning, trying to evade a threat he couldn't see. His radio calls were panicked, shouting warnings about an attack from an invisible enemy. Aubrey was already tracking him, second missile away. This pilot was better. He deployed chaff and flares, trying to decoy the incoming missile. He pulled hard Gs, turning and diving. But the AIM-120D was smarter than the older missiles. It ignored the chaff, tracked through the flares, and caught him in a climbing turn. Second explosion, second kill. Splash 2. Viper 1 has 2 confirmed. But the dying pilot's radio calls had alerted the rest of the enemy fighters. They knew now that there was a threat out here. They just didn't know where it was. 9 enemy fighters began converging on the area where their 2 comrades had died. 8:52 hours. The swarm. The tactical display looked like a hornet's nest that had been kicked. 9 enemy fighters, all turning toward her general area, radiating with their radars, trying desperately to find her. Viper 1, Hawkeye, multiple enemy fighters converging on your position. You need to disengage now. You're about to be surrounded. Aubrey assessed the situation with the cold calculation of a chess player seeing the entire board. The enemy fighters were approaching from 3 vectors, 3 from the north, 3 from the east, 3 from the south. They were trying to box her in, trap her in a kill zone where sheer numbers would overwhelm her classic tactics. Overwhelming force against a single opponent. But they were making a critical mistake. They still couldn't see her. The F-35's stealth technology didn't make her completely invisible. It just meant enemy radars had trouble detecting and tracking her. At long range, she was effectively invisible. At medium range, she appeared as fleeting contacts that came and went, impossible to lock onto. Only at very close range, inside 10 miles, could enemy radars reliably track her, which meant she had a massive advantage. She could see them, but they couldn't see her. She selected targets methodically. The 3 fighters approaching from the north were closest, 30 miles and closing. She locked up the leader and his wingman, fired 2 AMRAAMs in quick succession. Both missiles impacted within seconds of each other. 2 more explosions bloomed in the sky. Splash 3 and 4. Viper 1 has 4 confirmed kills. The 3rd fighter in that formation immediately broke off, turning away at maximum speed. He'd just watched both of his wingmen explode without seeing what killed them. His radar was showing nothing, but his eyes had seen 2 fighters turned into fireballs by an invisible enemy. That pilot was done fighting. He was running. But the other 6 fighters were still closing, and they were adapting. Viper 1, Hawkeye. Enemy fighters are changing tactics. They're spreading out, trying to flush you into visual range where they can see you. Smart. If they couldn't track her with radar, they'd force her close enough to see with their eyes. Get inside that 10-mile bubble where their radars could finally lock onto her, where their own short-range missiles could be used. But spreading out meant they were vulnerable. Aubrey turned toward the eastern group, 3 fighters in loose formation, about 25 miles away. They were higher than her, at 30,000 feet, trying to use altitude advantage to spot her visually against the dark ocean below. She climbed toward them, using her superior sensors to track their exact positions. When she was at 22,000 feet, 18 miles away, she fired 2 more AMRAAMs. The enemy pilots never saw the missiles coming. They were looking down, searching for her below them, when the missiles came from their own altitude, approaching from an angle they weren't watching. 2 more explosions. Splash 5 and 6. Viper 1 has 6 confirmed kills. The 3rd fighter in that formation did see the missiles, but only after they'd killed his wingman. He broke hard left, diving, trying to gain speed and distance from whatever nightmare was hunting them. Aubrey let him go. She had bigger problems. The southern group, 3 fighters, had figured out her approximate location based on the missile launches. They were turning hard toward her, closing fast, radiating aggressively with their radars, and they were inside 20 miles. 8:56 hours, close combat. 20 miles was still outside visual range, but it was close enough that the enemy fighters were starting to get intermittent radar returns on her aircraft. Their radars would show her for a few seconds, then lose her, then find her again. It wasn't enough for a reliable weapons lock, but it was enough to know she was there. Viper 1, Hawkeye. 3 enemy fighters at your 6 o'clock, low, range 18 miles and closing fast. They're trying to get behind you. Classic dogfighting tactics. Get on the enemy's tail where they can't shoot back. But that assumed the enemy didn't know you were there. Aubrey knew exactly where they were. She selected her last 2 AMRAAMs. 2 missiles left 3 enemy fighters. She'd have to make them count. She locked up the leader and his wingman, the 2 fighters flying closest together, fired both missiles simultaneously. Then she did something the enemy wasn't expecting. She turned directly toward them. The 2 AMRAAMs impacted their targets at nearly the same moment. 2 more enemy fighters became expanding fireballs. Splash 7 and 8. Viper 1 has 7 confirmed kills. The 9th fighter, the sole survivor of the northern group who'd fled earlier, saw the explosions ahead of him. He was at maximum speed, trying to escape, when his radar finally, briefly, locked onto Aubrey's F-35 as she turned. He fired. Two PL-15 missiles, China's most advanced air-to-air weapon, came off his rails and streaked toward her. Viper 1, missiles in the air, 2 missiles tracking you. Aubrey's countermeasure systems automatically deployed chaff and flares. She broke hard right, pulling 9 Gs, the G-suit inflating around her legs and abdomen to keep blood from pooling away from her brain. The first missile lost lock, distracted by the chaff and flares. It flew past her and detonated harmlessly. The second missile was smarter. It tracked through the countermeasures, still coming. Aubrey dove, rolling inverted, pulling the nose down toward the ocean 15,000 feet below. The missile followed, closing the distance. At 8,000 feet, she pulled up hard, harder than the missile could follow. The PL-15 tried to turn with her, but its guidance system couldn't handle the extreme maneuver. It flew past her and impacted the ocean below. She leveled out at 5,000 feet, her aircraft screaming through the air at 600 knots. The enemy pilot who'd fired those missiles was still out there. He'd turned away after firing, trying to extend to a safe distance. But he'd just revealed his position with his missile launch, and Aubrey was out of long-range missiles. Time for guns. 8:58 hours. The last fighter. The F-35C carried an internal GAU 22/25mm rotary cannon with 220 rounds. It was a last resort weapon in an era of long-range missiles, but it was about to become very relevant. Aubrey turned hard toward the last enemy fighter. He was 20 miles away, heading away from her at maximum speed, trying to escape. She lit her afterburner, the F-35's Pratt and Whitney F-135 engine roared to life, pushing her aircraft past Mach 1.2. The sonic boom echoed across the empty ocean as she accelerated. Hawkeye Viper 1, I'm pursuing the last bandit. Estimate intercept in 4 minutes. Viper 1, recommend you disengage. You've eliminated 8 of 9 enemy fighters. RTB for rearm and refuel. Negative Hawkeye, 9 launched, 9 will be splashed. Viper 1 is prosecuting. She closed the distance rapidly. Her superior speed and her knowledge of his exact location gave her every advantage. The enemy pilot knew someone was chasing him. His radar was still getting intermittent contacts, but he couldn't get a clean lock, couldn't fire back. He did the only thing he could. He turned toward his carrier, where his ship's defensive systems could protect him. Viper 1, be advised, enemy fighter is approaching their carrier battle group. You'll be within range of their ship-based air defenses in 3 minutes. That complicated things. Aubrey could follow him into the teeth of enemy surface-to-air missiles, but that was suicide. Even the F-35 stealth wouldn't save her from the concentrated fire of multiple ships. She had to end this before he reached safety. She closed to 15 miles, 12 miles, 10 miles. At 8 miles, her radar got a solid lock. The enemy fighter was directly ahead, just starting to descend toward his carrier's approach pattern. 7 miles. 6 miles. At 5 miles, she had him visually. A dark speck against the bright tropical sky, contrails streaming from his engines as he ran at full military power. 4 miles. 3 miles. At 2 miles, well within gun range, she lined up the shot. The F-35's advanced targeting system calculated lead, altitude, closure rate, and wind. A bright green gun cross appeared on her heads-up display, showing her exactly where to aim. The enemy pilot finally saw her, a brief glimpse in his mirrors of something closing fast behind him. He broke hard left, trying to throw off her aim. But Aubrey had anticipated the break. She'd been flying fighters for 8 years, had trained in air combat maneuvering until it was instinct. She smoothly led his turn, kept the gun cross on target. She pressed the trigger. The GAU-22 roared to life, firing 3,000 rounds per minute, 50 rounds, less than a second of fire, walked across the enemy fighter's fuselage. The 25mm high-explosive incendiary rounds shredded his aircraft, tearing through control surfaces, fuel tanks, and engine. The J-20 staggered in the air, trailing fire and smoke. The pilot ejected, his seat rocketing clear of the dying aircraft just before it entered an uncontrollable spin and plunged toward the ocean. Splash 9, Aubrey reported. Viper 1 has 9 confirmed kills. All bandits are down. 0902 hours. Extraction. Viper 1, Hawkeye. Confirm 9 enemy fighters destroyed? Affirmative, Hawkeye. 9 launched, 9 splashed. Viper 1 is Winchester and RTB. Winchester, the brevity code meaning she'd expended all weapons. She'd fired 6 AIM-120 missiles and used her gun. She was now defenseless except for her stealth and speed. Time to go home. Viper 1, Roger. Vector 090, Angels 20, speed 600 tanker standing by at the usual location. You are cleared RTB and Viper 1. Go ahead, Hawkeye. That was the most incredible display of air combat we've ever witnessed. 9 kills in 11 minutes. You just rewrote the record books. Aubrey didn't respond immediately. She was still processing what had just happened. 11 minutes ago, she'd been outnumbered 9-1. The enemy had thought they had an easy target, a lone American fighter, surrounded, with no support. They'd learned the hard way that technology and training matter more than numbers. Hawkeye Viper 1, just doing my job. See you at the boat. She turned east toward home, toward the carrier where her squadron mates would be waiting to hear the story behind her. 9 enemy fighters were gone, 8 destroyed by missiles, 1 by guns, all of them defeated by an enemy they never saw until it was too late. The enemy had thought it would be easy. They were wrong. 10:45 hours. Carrier landing the trap, the arrested landing on the USS Abraham Lincoln's deck, was perfect. Aubrey caught the 3-wire, exactly as trained, and rolled to a stop on the deck. When she climbed out of her cockpit, the entire flight deck crew was waiting. They knew. Word had already spread through the carrier. One of their pilots had just achieved the impossible. Her squadron commander, Captain Mike Hammer Richardson, was first to reach her. Captain Bennett, I need you to tell me you didn't actually just shoot down 9 enemy fighters. I can't tell you that, sir, because I did. Jesus Christ! He shook his head in disbelief. 9 confirmed kills in 11 minutes. That's the highest single engagement total since World War II. The intelligence debrief lasted 4 hours. Aubrey walked them through every decision, every shot, every maneuver. The data from her F-35 sensors had recorded everything. Every radar lock, every missile launch, every gun run. It was all there, undeniable proof of what she'd accomplished. Let's talk about the tactical situation, the intelligence officer said. You were outnumbered 9-1. Why didn't you disengage? Aubrey considered the question. Sir, they were trying to trap me. If I'd run, they would have chased me. I would have been defensive, reactive, letting them dictate the engagement by turning aggressive, by attacking them before they expected it. I controlled the fight. They were looking for me in the wrong places, defending against threats they didn't understand. Once I had that advantage, I maintained it. You maintained it by destroying 8 of them with missiles and 1 with guns. Yes, sir. The 9th pilot ejected safely. He's been recovered by Chinese forces. He'll be debriefed. What do you think he's going to tell them? Aubrey smiled. He's going to tell them that he flew against an enemy he couldn't see, that all his wingmen were destroyed by an invisible opponent, and that when he finally saw me, it was too late. He's going to tell them that American stealth fighters are everything they feared and more. The intelligence officer nodded slowly. That's going to impact their tactical thinking. They're going to be much more cautious about engaging F-35s. Good. That's the point of air superiority. Make the enemy afraid to fly. 3 days later, Washington, D.C. The story had leaked, as these things always did. News organizations around the world were reporting that an American fighter pilot had shot down 9 enemy aircraft in a single engagement over the South China Sea. It was the biggest air combat victory in decades. The Pentagon held a press conference. The Secretary of Defense stood at the podium, flanked by military leadership. 3 days ago, during a routine reconnaissance mission, one of our F-35C pilots encountered multiple enemy aircraft that exhibited hostile intent. In the engagement that followed, Captain Aubrey Bennett of VFA 147, operating from the USS Abraham Lincoln, successfully engaged and destroyed 9 enemy fighters in air-to-air combat. The room exploded with questions. Was she outnumbered? Yes, 9-1. How is that possible? Technology, training, and exceptional piloting skill. The F-35's advanced sensors and stealth characteristics gave Captain Bennett a decisive advantage. She could track and engage enemy aircraft before they could detect her. Combined with her superior training and tactical decision-making, she was able to systematically destroy enemy fighters that never saw her coming. What does this mean for air superiority? It confirms what we've known. American air power, combined with properly trained pilots and advanced technology, remains dominant. This engagement demonstrates that numerical advantage doesn't matter if you can't find and track your enemy. 1 week later, the award ceremony. Captain Aubrey Bennett stood at attention on the flight deck of the USS Abraham Lincoln. The entire carrier air wing was assembled, hundreds of sailors and aviators, all there to witness history. The Secretary of the Navy read the citation. For extraordinary heroism and conspicuous gallantry in aerial combat against enemy forces, Captain Aubrey Bennett, while conducting a reconnaissance mission in contested airspace, encountered 9 enemy fighters exhibiting hostile intent. Despite being heavily outnumbered, Captain Bennett engaged the enemy with exceptional skill and determination. Through superior tactical decision-making, expert employment of her aircraft's advanced capabilities, and unmatched combat flying skills, Captain Bennett destroyed all 9 enemy fighters in an 11-minute engagement, the highest single-pilot combat total in over 70 years. Her actions demonstrated extraordinary heroism, upheld the finest traditions of naval aviation, and contributed significantly to maintaining American air superiority. Captain Bennett is awarded the Navy Cross for valor in combat. They pinned the medal, second only to the Medal of Honor, on her uniform. The assembled crew erupted in applause. Later, in the squadron ready room, her fellow pilots gathered around. They wanted to hear the story from her in her own words. What was it like, one of the younger pilots asked, being outnumbered like that? Aubrey thought about the question. Honestly, it wasn't about the numbers. Once the fight started, I wasn't thinking, there are 9 of them and 1 of me. I was thinking, there's a target and another target and another target. I just took them one at a time. First pair, then next pair, then the singles. Each engagement was separate in my mind. But weren't you scared? Terrified. But fear doesn't help you. Training does. I did exactly what we practice every day. Identify threats, prioritize targets, employ weapons effectively, assess and re-engage. The only difference was that this time the targets were shooting back. The gun kill, another pilot said. That must have been intense, chasing him all the way to visual range. That was personal, Aubrey admitted. He'd fired missiles at me, tried to kill me. When he ran, I couldn't let him get away. 9 launched, 9 had to be splashed. No half measures. Captain Richardson spoke up. What you did out there, Aubrey, is going to change how we think about air combat. You proved that a well-trained pilot in an advanced aircraft can overcome any numerical disadvantage that's going to be studied for decades. Aubrey looked around at her squadron mates. The lesson isn't about me. It's about our training, our aircraft, our tactics. Anyone in this room could have done what I did. I just happened to be the one who was there when it needed to be done. But they all knew better. What she'd done was extraordinary. A once-in-a-generation display of air combat mastery. 6 months later, Top Gun. Aubrey was invited to be a guest instructor at the Navy Fighter Weapons School, Top Gun, the Navy's premier air combat training center. She was there to teach the next generation of fighter pilots about modern air combat. She stood in front of a classroom full of the Navy's best pilots, all eager to learn from the pilot who'd achieved 9 kills in a single engagement. What I'm about to tell you might surprise you, she began. The most important factor in that engagement wasn't my shooting skills. It wasn't even my aircraft, as advanced as it is. The most important factor was information. She pulled up a tactical display showing the engagement. At every moment of that fight, I knew where every enemy fighter was. I could see them on my sensors long before they could see me. That gave me the ability to plan, to prioritize, to engage targets in the order that gave me the best tactical advantage. Information dominance led to tactical superiority. A pilot raised his hand. But you were outnumbered 9-1. How did you manage the situation mentally? By refusing to see it as 9-on-1, I saw it as 1-on-1, 9 times in a row. First pair, 2-on-1, but I had surprise and first shot advantage. I took them before they knew I was there. Now it's 7-on-1. Next group of 3. I take 2, now it's 5-on-1. You see? I never fought all 9 at once. I fought them in pieces, using my advantages, stealth, sensors, weapons range, to engage them on my terms. Another pilot. What about when you ran out of missiles, when you had to use the gun? That's where training matters most. I've done hundreds of hours in air combat maneuvering. Gunfights aren't about luck. They're about geometry, energy management, and keeping your composure. I knew if I could close to gun range without being shot down, I could take that last fighter. It was just a matter of execution. She paused, looking at the eager faces staring back at her. Here's what I want you to remember. Technology gives you advantages. Training gives you skills. But what wins fights is decision-making. In that 11 minutes, I made dozens of critical decisions: which target to engage first, when to fire, when to maneuver, when to press, and when to be patient. Every decision was based on my training, my understanding of my aircraft's capabilities, and my assessment of the tactical situation. That's what you need to master. Not just how to fly and shoot, but how to think in combat. 2 years later, the legacy. The engagement became known in naval aviation circles as Bennett's 9, a textbook example of how superior technology and training could overcome overwhelming numbers. The tactical lessons from the engagement were incorporated into fighter pilot training programs across all branches of the U.S. military. The importance of stealth, sensor fusion, information dominance, and aggressive tactics against numerically superior forces became core principles. Aubrey was promoted to commander and given command of VFA 147, the same squadron she'd been flying with during the engagement. She continued to fly combat missions, continued to train the next generation of fighter pilots, and continued to push the boundaries of what was possible in air combat. But she never forgot that 11 minutes over the South China Sea. The 11 minutes when she'd been outnumbered 9-1, when the enemy thought she was an easy target, when everyone expected her to run. The 11 minutes when she'd proven that the most dangerous fighter pilot in the sky is the one the enemy never sees coming. The reunion. 5 years after the engagement, Aubrey attended a reunion of pilots who'd achieved ace status, 5 or more aerial victories. It was a small, exclusive group. She was the only pilot in the room who'd achieved all 5 kills in a single engagement. In fact, she'd achieved 9. An older pilot, a Vietnam War ace with 6 kills over the course of an entire war, approached her. Captain Bennett, or should I say Commander Bennett now, I've been flying fighters for 40 years. I got my 6 kills over 3 years in Vietnam. You got 9 in 11 minutes. I have to ask, what was going through your mind when you realized you were outnumbered 9-1? Aubrey smiled. Sir, with all respect, I never thought I was outnumbered. They were the ones who were outmatched. They just didn't know it yet. The old pilot laughed. That's the difference between your generation and mine. We had to see the enemy to fight them. You could fight them from beyond visual range, take them out before they even knew you were there. That's not just a tactical advantage, that's a revolution in warfare. It's about more than just technology, sir. It's about how you use it. I had the best aircraft in the world, but if I'd made the wrong decisions, if I'd panicked or been too cautious, I'd have been just another target. The technology gave me options. My training gave me skills. My decisions won the fight. Another pilot joined the conversation. I heard you turned down an assignment to fly a desk in the Pentagon. You're staying operational? Yes, sir. I'm a fighter pilot. That's where I belong, in the cockpit leading from the front. The Pentagon has plenty of people who can push papers. They don't have many people who can do what I do. And what you do is shoot down 9 enemy fighters in 11 minutes. Aubrey's smile faded slightly. What I do is protect American interests, maintain air superiority, and ensure that our pilots come home safely. The 9 kills were a result of doing that job, but they're not the job itself. The job is being ready every single day to fight and win when our nation calls. That's what fighter pilots do. That's what I do. 10 years later, Captain Aubrey Bennett, now promoted to captain and commanding officer of an entire carrier air wing, stood on the deck of the USS Gerald R. Ford, the Navy's newest and most advanced carrier. She watched as a new generation of pilots launched on training missions, flying the next evolution of the F-35, even more advanced, even more capable than the aircraft she'd flown a decade ago. A young pilot approached her. "Captain Bennett, I'm Lieutenant Sarah Chen. I just wanted to say, I joined the Navy because of you, because of what you did. You showed me that fighter pilots don't have to be afraid of being outnumbered. You just have to be better." Aubrey smiled. "Thank you, Lieutenant. But remember, I wasn't better because I was born better. I was better because I trained harder, studied more, and refused to accept limitations. You can do the same thing. You can be better than I was. Do you think I'll ever face a situation like you did? 9-to-1 odds? I hope not. I hope our technology and our tactics are so superior that the enemy never even tries to challenge us. But if you do face those odds, remember what I learned that day. Information wins fights, training saves lives, and the most dangerous pilot in the sky is the one who refuses to give up, no matter what the odds are." The young pilot saluted and walked away to join her squadron. Aubrey turned back to watch the launches. Catapult after catapult fired, sending fighter jets roaring into the sky, each one carrying pilots who were ready to defend American interests anywhere in the world. Somewhere out there, an enemy might be planning, might be building new fighters, new weapons, new tactics. They might think they can challenge American air superiority. They'd be making the same mistake the 9 enemy pilots had made a decade ago. They'd learn the hard way that American fighter pilots are the best in the world, not because of their technology, though that helps. Not because of their numbers, though those matter, but because of their training, their determination, and their absolute refusal to be intimidated by any enemy. Regardless of the odds, the enemy had thought it would be easy. 1 American fighter against 9 of theirs. Aubrey Bennett had taught them differently. She destroyed all 9 before they even understood what was happening, and the lesson had been learned around the world. Don't fight American fighter pilots. You won't see them coming. You won't survive the engagement, and you won't live to tell the story 9-to-1 odds. To Aubrey Bennett, that had just meant 9 targets, and she'd never missed a target in her life. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to hear more powerful stories of brave women in uniform.